minute and 30 seconds for your opening statement.
Okay. Good evening. First, I would like to thank Brian and my fellow executive board candidates for their remarks. As Brian said, the administrative vice president is the molder of the Senate. But what kind of Senate do I want to mold? My vision for Senate stems from two principles. An SGA that has a restructured student Senate to empower students, and a Senate that is more compassionate to student groups and students that come before it. Since I arrived in Senate about 6 months ago, more than 10 amendments have been made to our Constitution. To me, this shows a Constitution that has faults and needs improvement and major reform, not more of the same. As Administrative Vice President, I will work diligently to bring in that reform that is needed. I will empower students by creating mini SGAs, called governing assemblies, that will have the full authority to deal with issues that affect them directly. I want to repeat right now, and I want to emphasize, we will not create a second legislative house. There will be a Senate and a separate executive board. There will not be a House of Governors. Also, I will work as long as it takes to make a compassionate and caring Senate that cares for all student groups that come before it. I don't want students to be afraid to talk to their own senators that work for them. I want students to want to come to Senate and want to talk to us. If elected, I will tell students today no more to a Senate that bullies them and that makes them feel unwelcome. I will talk to every senator and make sure that they are doing their job to make sure that they are being more respectful and compassionate to senators.
Thank you. Andrew, you're going to have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Hi, as Administrative Vice President, I want to improve the way SGA communicates, and I have a specific plan for how I want to accomplish that goal. First, I want to reform the SGA mailer. I would like to do this in 2 ways. One, limit the number of emails that go out from the SGA account. And second, change the SGA mailer from something that goes out on Sunday to something that goes out on Tuesday, so that students will know what the SGA agenda is before the meeting happens, and they can come voice their opinions if there's something that they care about. The next thing I'd like to do is to work more closely with the UNews, KSLU, and SLU TV to use all the great new technologies that they have to communicate with the student body using more media formats. Third, I want to remove the door to the student activity suite to make it more inviting to the average student. Fourth, I want to institute mobile office hours for senators, where senators would take their weekly office hours and once a month hold them in the residence halls or academic buildings that they represent to more directly reach out to the students that they're representing. And the final thing that I want to continue from this year is I want an accountability system in Senate that's fair but strict. Students elect their SGA senators and executive board members to represent them, and presence is a necessary part of that. We need to continue the current attendance policy for this year. It's not uncompassionate, but it's strict, but it's a necessary thing. But I would lead by example and hold myself to the same standard that I would hold the rest of the senators to. And finally, I'd just like to emphasize that we need these specific plans in place. We don't need restructuring. We don't need big picture things. We just need to focus on specific plans that we can actually accomplish.
Thank you, Andrew. We will now hear from Adam. And Andrew, you can answer the first question.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I'm just going to talk really loud then. All right. In the past, senators have walked into meetings without communicating with their constituents. I know I myself, as a member of the College of Arts and Sciences, I really don't hear him very often. How will you work to keep the senators connected with their constituents so that they can vote in accordance with the students who got them elected? Does that make sense?
Yes. I think that the mobile office hours thing that I touched on briefly is really how I'd like to do that. Historically, senators have used email as their primary form of communication, which it works in some cases, but often students don't respond to emails. So using the mobile office hours program, it'll put the senators in the places where their constituents have their classes or where they live, and it will really allow them to connect on a more personal basis, not just through email. And I think that that will really help, and it really just comes down to empowering every senator with the communication skills and training at the SGA retreat that they need to communicate effectively.
Thank you. Adam, do you follow up?
I do. Another big goal of the administrative vice president is to make sure that senators are actively engaged in weekly meetings. I know when the unions cover Senate meetings, sometimes you guys are on Facebook, things like that, chatting and laughing. How are you going to make sure that the senators are actively engaged? And if you could incorporate a little bit of what type of tone you're going to take to that.
I think that it's important for Senate to be a professional place, which is why something that I think we need to focus more on that we focused on earlier in the year was a laptop policy, that senators would only use their laptops if they needed it to look something up for what was going on. It's something that we've admittedly gotten a little bit away from and enforcing ourselves with, but I think that that was a good policy because, like you said, things like playing around on Facebook aren't good to have in Senate. But also, I think in general, we have to remember that senators are students, and part of having a compassionate Senate is not acting too professional. We are students. I'm not encouraging people to play on their laptops, but some things like that are just inherent with students, and it makes Senate a little bit personable to know that senators aren't these beings that act on a different level. They have the same flaws as other people. But I think that the current laptop policy would be good to focus on and really enforce that better.
Thank you, Andrew. Adam, you want to ask a question to Ed?
You like the same one. In the past, senators have walked away without communicating with those they represent. How do you work to make sure the senators make a connection with their constituents so that they can vote and make the decisions who have been elected?
I'm glad you asked that question. I think mobile office hours are a great idea. They're not enough. I want the senators next year to be fully immersed in the student body. I want them to not just stand on the sidelines and kind of guess what students want. I want them to go to students directly. I want them to go to every single student that they're representing, well, not every single, but the best of their ability to go to all the students that they can in their constituency, go door to door, ask them, be where their students are. And I want them to fully just immerse themselves and learn what the students that they're representing actually want. And that's my major thing that I want done.
Paula?
I do, and it's the same kind of one, during the Senate meetings, senators are often distracted and chatting and on Facebook. How would you go about making sure they're actively engaged in the meetings? And again, as you answer this question, if you could probably incorporate sort of the disciplinary tone you're expressing, that would be great.
Absolutely. I think that we do have too liberal of a laptop policy. Laptops should be used for research, and it does undermine Senate's ability to effectively do its job. Although I can't necessarily go in and micromanage, I do think that I'm going to talk to each senator one-on-one who I see has a problem, or there might be he's a recurring offender or something like that. I will individually go around and spend the necessary time that I need to spend on each senator. If it takes me hours of my week, I will do it, just to ensure that we have a Senate that's working for our students.
Thank you. Eli, you want to ask the second question from Adam?
Okay, so the role of administrative vice president is a little vague compared to the other members of the board. You guys, I've heard it referred to as the cheerleader of the Senate, but also what that part is to do is set specific goals for yourself to be on stage with you representing your introduction. I'd like you to explicitly explain some of the specific goals you have for yourself that maybe fall outside of the traditional description of being administrative vice president. Does that make sense?
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. You talk about some specific things, aside from keeping the senators in check, that you will do as administrative vice president, some specific goals you might have.
Some specific goals that I have for Senate. Biggest thing, obviously, is I want an attendance policy that's fair. I want to work with Brian and all the other executive board members on my Senate, and senators, I apologize, to try to push this governing structure. That this is going to be a major undertaking. This is something that I'm willing to put my time and invest my time in and do. Some other things that I want to do is I want to make the SG office more inviting. I personally don't think it's inviting enough. And I want to make sure that the administrative vice president meets with student groups before they come into Senate and kind of familiarizes them with some of the legislative procedure that goes on. Because when most student groups come before Senate, they have absolutely no idea what's going on. They don't know all this parliamentary procedure and all that stuff. I want to familiarize them before they come in with what goes on in the Senate chambers.
Paula?
I do. In your introduction, you mentioned you would have a role in the restructuring of the